Instagram. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. We are now live on YouTube and on Instagram. So good morning, everyone. Wow. This is Success Mentorship Class number 412. Wow. What's that, 8 years? Yeah, about 8 years. And we have so many powerful messages heard from so many different speakers. You know, one of the great things about the Success Mentorship Network is that many people get a chance to speak and to share their message. And Dawn coordinates that. So those of you who are listening now and those who are listening on Instagram and YouTube can reach out to us if you would like to be one of the speakers, because we have so many incredibly brilliant people. And when I say brilliant, I mean brilliant in the understanding of life and how things work. This is, of course, welcoming those on Instagram, Dr. Herbert Harris, and I invite you all to visit our website, herbertharris.com, and look at some of the goodies there, especially our New You for the New Year Home Study course. Welcome, Janie. Thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, let us do our meditation to get centered, because today's message is one of those messages that is so fundamental that it can transform your life in a completely different way. So let us sit straight up in our seats. Let's close our outer eyes. Open our inner eyes. Take a deep breath and hold it. Let it out slowly. Take a deep breath and hold it. Let it out slowly. And in this space of peace and relaxation, I am at peace with myself.
With myself.
Let us affirm that once more. I am at peace.
At peace with myself.
And as we let this peace sink in, let our minds shift to that space where we are open and receptive to new knowledge, to new experiences. My mind is open, receptive, and ready to learn. Let us affirm that together. My mind is open, receptive, and ready to learn. Just let that sink in. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. And so it is. Wow. This topic is really, the topic is your only limitation is your own imagination. And it's interesting that we've done it so far down the line as Success Mentorship Class number 412, because this is a message that I think you need to have that evolved consciousness to see how powerful you really are. So right now, so many of us live in really surrounded by an invisible wall. It's a wall we never see, we never touch, but it's a wall that can close us in from growth, close us in from experiences, but most of all, close us in from experiencing who we really are. This wall holds more people captive than any prison on the planet. And this is the wall of imagination. So imagination is not something that exists just in your dreams. Imagination is a vibrant, an action, is a quality. Imagination is a faculty in our minds, just like hearing and seeing. Our imagination has the ability to do things just like we can look around and we can see. We can also imagine things that never were. One of my great friends, and one of the books that I love very much, Neville. Neville was a lecturer and a New Thought leader in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. And he said something that was very profound. And he said this, that the world originates in a divine activity identical with what we know ourselves as the activity of imagination. He goes on to say, the future will not be determined, the future will not be fundamentally different from the imaginal activities of man. Therefore, the individual who can summon at will whatever imaginal activity he pleases, and to whom the visions of his imagination are as real as the forms of nature, is the master of his fate. In other words, if you can see something in your mind's eye, in your imagination, it's like experiencing it in your life. And so what we're saying now is your only limitation is really, it's not your age, it's not your education, it's not your past failures, your economy, your health, your family background. It's not the people who doubted you, but your only limitation is the limitations you put on your faculty of imagination. In other words, if you can imagine it, you can do it. It's very interesting when we think about this. One of the great members of the Underground Railroad, Harriet, she said, I could have freed a lot more people if they knew they were slaves. And this power of imagination, we can do a lot more in our lives if we use this power instead of assuming that we don't have it. So imagination is a faculty. It's a part of your body. It's a part of your being, just like your sight, your touch, your smell, all these other faculties. It is a faculty of mind that you can use. I like to look at the word imagination as image in action. So any image that you can see in your mind, you can create in your life. Wow. Neuroscience, there's a lot of scientific information backing this up. Neuroscience says that whatever you can vividly imagine and experience, the brain activates the same neural circuits as if you were actually living it. When you listen to people who've achieved outrageous success, they'll tell you how all they could do was think about doing it. When Tyler Perry was doing his plays and going church to church, community center to community center, all he could see was the vision of his programs on television, of his movies in the theaters. And that was the vision that kept him going. The power of imagination is that you can now use that vision to actually make the events, the circumstances, the situations, and the people conform to what you want. Wow. There was an interesting experiment, one of the, at the University of Chicago, a Dr. 𝐵𝐔𝐄𝐒 did an experiment where he took 3 groups. He took one group of people who were going to practice free throws. They were on the basketball court. And there was one group that they practiced free throws. They got to the free throw line and they practiced free throws for 1 hour a day for 30 days. Then he had a second group that didn't practice, didn't touch a ball, but they sat for an hour visualizing themselves on the basketball court, visualizing themselves making the shot. And not just visualizing it, but having a complete sensual experience based on that particular outcome. So they were seeing themselves shooting the ball. They were hearing the crowd roaring, cheering them when they made the shot. They could feel that energy in the stadium. Then he had a third group that did nothing. As they say, they chilled for an hour a day. And after 30 days, listen to the results. The group that practiced an hour a day diligently, their ability improved 24%. The ones who actually shot the balls. But the ones who did nothing, didn't touch a ball, but who visualized themselves shooting the ball, hitting that ball going in for an hour, visualized feeling the sounds of victory, their skill level increased 23%. So a 1% difference between actually practice and seeing it done. In athletics, in the athletic field, the athletes have really learned to use this. I love watching the Olympics because you watch many of the participants, and before they go on to their routine, you see them close their eyes, and it's being taught to see yourself achieving what you have to achieve. When Nadia Comaneci needed a 10, her coach Bella Carolla said, the only way you're going to win this, you need a 10. And she closed her eyes and visualized getting a 10, visualized the audience just going into an eruption when she got it. And she said to him, need a 10, got a 10. Whew. That's powerful, folks. So that says that this imagination faculty that we have, if we use it, that we can create anything we desire. Imagination is really tightly related to consciousness. As we said, many people don't understand the power that they have, which means that they don't have the awareness, the consciousness of that power. And so imagination is one of those powers. If we don't believe we have that power, that consciousness, that ability, then we never use it. And so it becomes a limitation. Scripturally, it says, seek first the kingdom. And in metaphysical thought, kingdom is consciousness. It says, seek first the kingdom, the consciousness, and all these things will be added unto you. So from the new science, from the metaphysical Bible understanding, anything you can focus on, you can literally create a vibration. It's all about energy. You create a vibration that literally begins to attract into your space exactly what you want, exactly the way you want it. As a result, this great power now is a part of that idea of co-creating the world. In other words, the life that we live is the product of the co-creation of the world mind, the God mind, and our mind. So imagination is a powerful tool. And you have to ask yourself, man, with this kind of power, if you can imagine it, if you can see it, you can be it. Why is it that we don't do it? How did imagination become a limitation? Well, imagination works in the positive or the negative. You see, the creative nature of the universe is whatever image you hold in your consciousness is an energy form, and it attracts into your space things that are congruent with that you hold in your consciousness. So it can be positive and negative. It's like soil. Soil will grow flowers and it grows weeds, things you don't want. Similarly, your imagination takes whatever thoughts you have in your mind and you become literally magnetic for those thoughts. So you can imagine success or you can imagine failure. There was a track fella, man, I think I real block about his name because I hate this. He was one of those track people that he was a runner, I think, in the 200-meter run. And he was faster than everybody. But in his mind, he never could see himself winning. Even though he was going through all the training and all the emotions, all the motions, he did not see in his consciousness, he did not see him winning the prize. And as a result, he didn't win. The race that was so telling was that he was literally 20 yards ahead of everybody else coming into the stretch. So there was no way he could lose. When he was about 10 feet from the finish line, he stopped running. And of course, everybody passed him. And like people, what happened? What happened? In his mind, he thought that he had already crossed the finish line. And so this power of what we permit ourselves to see, what we permit ourselves to create in our minds, in our consciousness, can work for us or against us. So you can imagine growth or you can imagine loss. You can imagine abundance or you can imagine scarcity. We always talk about the glass is half full or half empty. What's the different mindset? If it's half empty, then the mind says it's going to be empty soon and you're going to be thirsty. If it's half full, the mindset is, aha, there's more to come and we'll have lots of water. So people can use their imagination against themselves. And we do it all the time, folks. We look at what's going on in our lives and we do our best to give all those reasons of why it can't happen. We imagine what might go wrong. Man, if I get into this program, I might not win. A lady was talking about the Voice, a very talented singer. And she got through, I think, the first 2 auditions. And the third audition, her friends were telling her, man, she was excited and saying how, I got the call back from the Voice and it's going to happen, And the people around were like, don't be disappointed. And I think they were well-intended. Okay, don't be disappointed. Millions of people are applying for that. You probably won't let it happen. It won't happen for you. And so don't be disappointed. So the young lady began to think, wow, man, I probably won't get it. And subconsciously, she overlooked the third email that said, you've been selected to come into that final group to get into the program. We do this to ourselves so often, folks. We undermine our own possibilities by listening to what other people say, by thinking about what we can't afford, by thinking about what won't work. We even get locked up in the past of thinking about you fail again. When you're surrounded by people who remind you of every failure you've ever had. Oh, wow, man, you're going to try that again. You tried that stuff and it didn't work. Man, you need to really get a real job. You need to do something constructive. People can only tell you about your potential based on their own limitations. And then you get the one, I just had a birthday. And by the way, I have gotten so many gifts. It's been crazy. I'm just amazed. I got to figure out something. This is amazing what's been happening. I guess people send money because they're like, Herb, send him money. I don't know what else he needs. He likes. Anyway, with this idea of a birthday, it has just kept coming in that folks said, man, when were you born? I'm like, I was born in 1944. Like, oh, wow. They start calculating. And this mindset, man, you should be slowing down. It's too old. It's too late, man. All this stuff, one person told me once, they said, Doc, they had no idea my age. And they were saying, Doc, if you don't succeed by 40, it's over. You're done, man. So we can use negative imagination. And that's why the topic, the only limitation is your own imagination. Negative imagination, all the things that can go wrong, all the things that you messed up in the past. All the people who've hurt you. This is all negative imagination, and it attracts like vibrations into your space. Wow. So we don't lack imagination. We lack discipline. We lack the ability to control our imagination and use it affirmatively. How did this happen? We have this great power. How does this happen? Well, think about this. When we were children, the first 3 words we learn are no, stop, and don't. No child is born with limited imagination. That's why when you know what they call them, the terrible twos, they want to know everything. What's this? What's that? How does this work? How does that work? Children imagine freely. They create worlds. They ask impossible questions. They believe that anything is possible. They'll go walking across the street not being concerned about cars. You know, it's interesting. There was a news thing the other day. 2 toddlers wandered onto the highway. You know, they weren't concerned about anything. Well, the car stopped. Somebody ran out, picked them up. So the first words we learn are no, stop, and don't. And then we begin to learn shut up. Then you have all of that superimposed upon social expectations, family expectations. Everything is like boxing you in, boxing you in. You can't do this. You're white, you're black, you're tall, you're fat. All of these things boxing you in. And so family beliefs, man, nobody from our family's ever done this, and I don't know why you think you should. Cultural ceilings, you know. You come from this particular ethnic group, y'all can't be CEOs. It's very interesting just how deep this imagination, this visualization. I travel a lot, and all of my friends know that I travel suited and booted. That means I travel in a suit and a tie. You'll never, ever, 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 ever see me on a plane or a bus or anything in a jogging suit. I'm always suited and booted. And in all of my travels, and we're talking at least 50 years of traveling on airplanes, in all of my travels, I have never heard a person walk up to me and say, "Sir, are you a CEO? You must be a businessman." 100% of the time, people walk up and say, "Are you a minister?" Now, why is that? Because in the consciousness of America, a black man in a suit has got to be a minister. Nobody walks up. I've never seen anybody walk up to a white guy in a suit. And I travel first class, so everybody's suited and booted, many of them. And nobody ever says, "Sir, are you a minister? Or are you a businessman?" There's an automatic assumption. So we have all of these things that limit our imagination and thus limit our potential to create the world. Yeah. So when you stop asking what's possible and try to figure out what's comfortable, you lose that imagination power. When you start asking what's safe, you know, let me get into this comfort zone in my life. Many people have to have a job. You know, the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee is just who's paying you. Many people trade a job for somebody else to pay them, to trade their time for dollars based on what somebody else thinks they're worth. And that is the level of their imagination. They need that certainty. Then you have entrepreneurs who have a vision that's so strong that they trade their time to build their vision. It's the vision builders that make it happen. And the one thing I can tell each and every one of you listening this morning on Instagram, on YouTube, on Zoom, if you're up at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're listening to me, you're one of that 1%. You're one of that group of people that have the faculty of imagination now, that you can cultivate it, you can learn to use it more effectively. You see, the idea of the Life Skill Institute, our watchword is living is a skill, that you can learn, practice, and master anything you need to get anything you want. And one of your most powerful tools is the imagination. Someone once said, well, belief creates imagination. No. Imagination creates belief. We create the world by what we believe. And so the images that we hold in our mind Let us from this point on use these images and this power affirmatively. Let us begin to create images of what we want to be, do, and have. When we talk about, we have the new you for the New Year Home Study course, and those of you who took the last webinar, the process is very simple. Look at where you are, assess where you are. Look at the changes that you need to make in your life based on your level of discomfort. And, like this sucks. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. I need to make a change in my life. But the third step is to create a new vision, because the vision that you create is based on your imagination and not your condition. So get away from that stuff of, man, be the Thomas Edison of whatever it is that you want to do. You keep working at it until you succeed. Be like the Indian rain dancers. They said, well, how does the Indian rain dancer make it rain? The chief said, well, we dance until it rains. And so this idea of imagination coupled with discipline and persistence says nothing is impossible. The difference between Tesla and Edison created by trial and error. Tesla created by imagination. So Tesla would go into a deep state, a sleep state, a meditative state, and he would, in his imagination, see exactly what it was that he was attempting to invent, whatever challenge he was going to solve. Edison actually gave Tesla actually worked for Edison for a while. And Edison gave Tesla a challenge. He said, I want you to solve this particular electrical problem, and I'll pay you $50,000. So it must have been a serious problem. In those days, $50,000 would buy a whole state. Tesla solved the problem in 2 weeks. Edison wouldn't pay him for it. That's one of the reasons they fell out. But what Tesla's approach was, if I can see it in my imagination, then all I have to do now is let my imagination help me create it in reality. So each of us has that ability to create in reality anything we can see in our minds. So the more we can see, the more we can be. So how do we move forward? What do we do to use this imagination power in a way that can change our lives, that can create the new you, the new person you want to be this year, to create something different in your life? Well, that's that step 3 of the New Year home study course. That new vision, to use your imagination now to create a vision bigger than anything you've ever seen before. Don't let other people's limitations determine the size of your vision. You've heard me tell the story many times about my coach. And as a network marketer, when I shared the story that, when my coach asked me what was my goal, and I told him I wanted to make $1 million a year, and I had broken it down, that's $84,000 a month. He said, why not make $1 million a month? And when he asked that question, I had no answer, because my imagination had not expanded to the point where I could see what my life would be like making $1 million a month. And so each and every one of you today on this program is so critical. This imagination tool is your power tool for creating the life you want to live. That if you can see it in your mind's eye, if you can visualize it, just as the basketball players, it's not just enough to see, but to see it in your mind's eye, where each of your sensory faculties is involved. So if you want to be a speaker, I know we have a number of people on the program today who want to be a speaker. Well, see yourself on that stage. Coach is on the line, and I know when I was developing my speaking career, Coach had gotten me involved in a program, and I knew that I was going to be a speaker. In my visualization, one day I saw it so clearly the vision I saw was the big stage, the room, and we didn't have phones in those, but I had everybody, thousands of people with a candle. And that was my vision. As I closed out the talk that day, my affirmation was, and I had them say, "This time it's me in the winner's circle." And thousands of people said that and held their light up. "This time it's me who gets the prize. This time I've really, really made it. My dream is realized." And I remember looking at the Cheryl Shoemate and Bill Dempsey, and in my vision, I said to them, "Bill, they're ready. Send them home." And I started crying uncontrollably. I just started boo-hooing. I mean, everything just exploded. And this is when you know that this is your destiny. And this is when you know that this is what you're supposed to do. So I'm challenging everyone here today. Let us wrap up this program and end with a challenge. And then with some specific steps. Once you've laid out the vision, and once you've practiced imagineering, and when I say imagineering, that whatever you can see, multiply it by 10. So whatever your financial goals are, multiply them by 10. Do you realize that $1 million, what's the difference between $1 million and $1 billion? Well, $1 billion is 1,000 million. Now, to be a billionaire, you got to have that kind of consciousness. What would my life be like with $1,000 million? Well, clearly, you're not going to go out and buy 9,000 cars, but it changes your mindset now that as a billionaire, you're looking at, well, how can I bring water to this whole country that has polluted water? How can I bring this whole body of young people and get them a good education? In other words, you can begin to see a dream so big and a vision so big in your imagination. And the one thing you must understand is nothing is impossible. If you can see it in your imagination, you've already created the vibration to make it happen. And so this day, imagination is a faculty. You can learn, practice, and master it. Imagination can get you beyond all limitation. Imagination is unlimited and infinite. That anything you can imagine, you can experience. That imagination is faith in action. You know, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So imagination is being able to take stuff that you don't see, but still act as though it is. You know, there's that scripture that says, he says those things that are not. He calls those things that are not as though they are. That's the power of imagination. Anything that you don't have, call it like you want it. Call it like it is. And then finally, recognize that it's a learned skill and to work at it. Learn to expand your imagination through learning, through reading, through travel. The more you can see, the more you can be. Learn to use discipline to put your imagination into your schedule of activities, just like you schedule your meals, your eating, and your study and your sleep. The imagination is a power tool when you have the persistence through faith to make it happen. And so over this year, use your imagination to create that vision, your discipline to keep you working at it, and your persistence to make you hang in there until it's done. And my friends, I'll tell you this, when you can do that, nothing is impossible. Your imagination has no boundaries, has no limitations, and you can just go for it. So now my challenge to you today is that whatever your goals are, you've written your goals for this year, multiply them by 10. Whatever your monetary goals are, multiply it by 10. Whatever your impact goals are, multiply it by 10. And then write it down. Scripture says, write that vision and make it plain. And write it down. And as you write, you'll find your imagination is extended and expanded. And you do that for what you want to accomplish this year. I recommend that you also get your New You for the New Year home study course, because a lot of the foundations to make this happen are there in that course. And Those on Instagram, those on YouTube, you can go to Herbert at herbertharris.com. Go to herbertharris.com, www.herbertharris.com, and you can get the New You for the New Year Home Study course. And anybody who gets it gets a complimentary consultation, so we can talk about how it might benefit you and how you might be guided. You are each standing on the precipice of greatness. Take action, knowing that you can be what you want to be, do what you want to do, and have anything you desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.